Yolvdog, let's go. Darret's, let's go. Blur Trinker, thank you very much. Rustafar, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Code Girl, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. Or is it Code Girl? Code Girl, what are you doing? Gifted sub. Thank you for all the like little. I see these little bits. Dingus Dev, let's go. Many appreciations. Tachi and Cannon, my boys. 20 subs and I didn't even get a single one. Sag. Why would you be Sag? Why don't you just you can have your own if you want it. Tripwire. You know what you can do? You know what you can also do? I love the current acoustic pivot of Prime. Oh my gosh. You like the acoustic pivot of Prime? We're going to be doing this for a little bit. But guys, I am going to go so deep on this and we're going to make so many songs. I have so many fun ideas. Okay, I'm so excited. I am so excited. Okay, so excited. Okay, no more. I'm so excited, dude. I could do it all day. I'm gonna do it all day. Okay, let's do this Karpathy one. I'm excited for you, dude. Code Girl. My gosh, I actually bought a book on music theory. I am reading about, right now we're on amplitudes and sine waves and all that stuff, and I'm like, I'm a computer engineer. I already know all this shit, you idiots. And so I'm very happy about it. I'm gonna go way into it. Dude, it's gonna be so much fun. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. Thank you very much, Kalan and Chrome. Appreciate that. And Gringy, let's go. So physics then? Yeah. Well, I want to understand it, and I have a piano, a little electric piano at home. So I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna play on it and try to get like into it. It's like beginner to expert on music theory. It's thinner, it's smaller. It's supposed to be just like a nice light intro for people that don't know what they're doing into doing something. It doesn't require you reading musical staff. I can't read. I don't know how to read music. Right? Ah, yes, piano is so good to learn theory. Exactly, because piano, you can get up to like 10 notes, right? It seems pretty cool. So, very excited. Very excited for that. We also going to work on something with DJ Dave. If you remember, that's the girl that turned me on to Strudel. So, we got to get her on. And I want to get good enough that when she gets on, like, her and I can sit down and be like, all right, let's do it. Let's do a live concert. Her and I in person. Like, that's what I want. She turned me on to. Guys, finish the sentence. You can't stop the sentence, okay? You cannot stop the sentence as she turned me on. She turned me on to Strudel. Chess arc over. Well, I think I'm gonna do an in-person tournament with Anna, right? I turned Prime on too. Yeah, you turned Prime. You turned me on to Elixir. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you.
Between switching to Arch Linux and now learning music theory, welcome to being a hipster.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're happy to have you at the commune.
Dude, I can't wait. Dude, I was just thinking about switching to Blue Sky. So I think this actually really makes sense. All right. I already know people are like, dude, that's not funny. Okay. Apparently this is a legendary talk. The future of software again. From Karpathy, I think he gave the talk of the future of software. So this must be a new iteration on it. And everyone is quite convinced that there is a ghost right here in the frame. Okay? There is a ghost behind this girl, and she's just looking off into the distance, and she's about to get her life taken from her. And nobody's concerned. Can we please get her on the phone and make sure she's okay? She's haunted.
Please welcome former director of AI, Tesla, Andrej Karpathy.
Wow, a lot of people here. Hello. Okay, yeah, so I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about software in the...
Sorry, I loved that intro. Just, wow, a lot of people here. And then like the good 10 seconds of just like not a lot of talking. That was great. Dude, I gotta try that out for an intro.
Era of AI. And I'm told that many of you are students, like bachelor's, master's, PhD, and so on, and you're about to enter the industry. And I think it's actually like an extremely unique and very interesting time to enter the industry right now.
I don't know if everybody feels like this is a very interesting time period to enter into the market. Does everyone feel like it's interesting and unique, or are we feeling like it's not that much fun? I think a lot of people aren't super stoked, but he's also talking to to be completely fair, Karpathy is talking to a whole group of people that are getting like masters and doctorates in AI. So it's probably pretty interesting for them, okay? Because they're building, they're building out the future and everything. Dude, they just heard that Meta was doing $1 million signing bonuses, so they're like, "Let's go, boys! We're going deep on this one." Right. So maybe it's a little bit different perspective. You know what I mean? Yes, TJ, you are correct. This is going to be literally the Lord of the Rings Blu-ray edition extended scene of this talk. We're going deep on this one.
And I think fundamentally the reason for that is that software is changing again. And
Okay.
I say again because I actually gave this talk already. But the problem is that software keeps changing. So I actually have a lot of material to create new talks.
Okay.
And I think it's changing quite fundamentally. I think, roughly speaking, software has not changed much on such a fundamental level for 70 years. And then
Software hasn't changed much in 70 years? I mean, 70 years ago, we were on punch cards or punch paper with mercury tubes delivering memory. And like, when we did the calculations for World War II for Fat Boy, like those calculations were done around the clock with teams of 3 or 4 in a room that was like 110 degrees freedom units. There was no such thing as a keyboard. We didn't have a keyboard, right? So it's like, has software changed? There's at least been one change. Can we all agree? There was, wow, that is horrible, to, hey, we have programming languages that run on all systems. Like there was like, I would venture to say there was a couple changes. There was not even programming languages. Then there was programming languages, but the compiler and the operating system was unique, meaning that you wrote one thing for one computer and that's it. You didn't run anywhere else. And then our era, which started with Ken Thompson, right, who did Unix and C, and that's kind of like our era. So I would at least say it's changed a couple times, going from no programming languages to write once, run only in one close, to this. Did he say 17? Oh, he said 17, not 70. Okay, well, that makes a huge difference. Okay, if he said 17 years, I totally agree with him, yeah. Dude, he's so right. Dude, bro's so right. It's crazy. Dude,
it's changed, I think, about twice quite rapidly in the last few years. And so there's just a huge amount of work to do, a huge amount of software to write and rewrite. So let's take a look at maybe...
Hold on, redo this for a quick second.
It's changed, I think, about twice quite rapidly in the last few years. And so there's just a huge amount of work to do, a huge amount of software to write and rewrite. So let's take a look.
I don't understand, why would we rewrite software if things have changed? First off, I need to understand what his change is. But what has changed so fundamentally that we need to rewrite software? Like, Rust? Dude, is he about to rust us? Are we about to get hit with a Rust bomb? Damn, that's crazy. I didn't. Okay, dude, the Karpathy Rust rewrite arc, I did not see coming. Okay, that's crazy.
Look at maybe the realm of software. So if we kind of think of this as like the map of software, this is a really cool tool called Map of GitHub.
Oh, this is so good. This is so good. I like this. I like this a lot. Because you know what? I think it was Theo that I was arguing with. He was saying that like 50%, no, he was saying more than 50% of all repos are web-based. Or are like JavaScript, or I think he said it was like JavaScript and HTML. And look at this. There's like cloud, there's Swift, there's learning and Python, there's data. Here's some front-end stuff. There's C++ frameworks. There's the Godot land. There's intrusion arsenal. Not even sure what the hell that means. MERN. That sounds like, okay, that falls under that one. Bypass Bastion. Not even sure what the hell that is. Fletaria. Is that Godot Island? Yeah, that's the island of Dr. Monroe, actually, where they have the little freak babies and they do all that stuff. It's weird. It's weird. You wouldn't want you don't want to go there.
This is kind of like all the software that's written. These are
Promptoria?
instructions to the computer for carrying out tasks in the digital space. So if you zoom in here, these are all different kinds of repositories, and this is all the code that has been written. And a few years ago, I kind of observed that software was kind of changing, and there was kind of like a new type of software around. And I called this Software 2.0 at the time. And the idea here was that software.
Oh, he did this in 2017. Interesting. Neural nets?
1.0 is the code you write for the computer. Software 2.0 are basically neural networks. And
Is that software or is that just an algorithm? Do you really call algorithms like software? I don't know about that. I mean, I've hand rolled a lot. I know this is going to be a little bit shocking to some of you guys, but when I decided that I was going to learn JavaScript, I wrote a library 12 years ago, and this does neural nets, RBFs, and fizz, and colony optimizations, and evolutionary algorithms. Look at that. That's my email. That's my old email. And so, yeah, you know, like, I've been writing software 2.0 for a while. This was back when I was getting my master's in the old AI. The old AI.
in particular, the weights of a neural network. And you're not writing this code directly. You are more kind of like tuning the data sets, and then you're running an optimizer to create the parameters of this neural net. And I think like at the time, neural nets were kind of seen as like just a different kind of classifier, like a decision tree or something like that. And so I think it was kind of like, I think this framing was a lot more appropriate. And now actually what we have is kind of like an equivalent of GitHub in the realm of Software 2.0. And I think the Hugging Face is basically equivalent of GitHub in Software 2.0. And there's also Model Atlas, and you can visualize all the code written there.
I understand this. I don't know what's going on in this graph. Right? Like, what is this? What is this graph? I don't even know how to make sense of this. At least here I'm like, okay, Promptoria. Yeah, I got this. Droid Smith Realm. Okay, yeah, I get this. I don't know what Jaxian, but I'm sure it's fantastic. Laravel. Okay, Laravelium. Okay, I understand this. This just looks like a fever dream. I'm literally looking at a fever dream right there.
In case you're curious, by the way, the giants.
Is this the same graph except for this is what it looks like when you're on acid? Where's Mordoria? Yeah, that's right. We have Promptoria, but where's Mordoria?
Circle, the point in the middle, these are the parameters of Flux, the image generator. And so anytime someone tunes a LoRa on top of a Flux model, you basically create a git commit in this space, and you create a different kind of image generator. So basically what we have is Software 1.0 is the computer code that programs a computer. Software 2.0 are the weights which program neural networks.
By the way, this photo is definitely from the 70s or the 80s. There was no such thing as a QWERTY keyboard until, what, 80s or 70s? 70s? My guess is 70s. 70s must have came out. Probably 72, QWERTY. Maybe 68. Anyways, okay. Neural nets. I have a hard time classifying Software 2.0 as neural nets. But okay, you know what? I'm gonna accept it. I'm just gonna say, okay, Software 2.0 are these neural net learning functions for being like better classifiers. Okay, we're just gonna accept it.
Works. And here's an example of AlexNet image recognizer neural network. Now, so far, all of the neural networks that we've been familiar with until recently were kind of like fixed function computers.
Yeah.
Image to categories or something like that.
They're really stuck to something small.
Changed, and I think is a quite fundamental change, is that neural networks became programmable with large language models.
Has anyone done any like the smaller like MLPs? Anyone in chat back, what, a decade ago? And do we got any MLP boys? Any of you guys? Okay, I assume we got a couple. Okay, we got a couple. I see a couple yeses in there. Yeah. The hard part about the MLPs and all this is that you really have like such a fixed function you're working on. You really, like, dude, the amount of things you can solve with it, you have to have such intense data and all that, and it's just so narrow. So yeah, I mean, LLMs are quite magical. Okay, so Software 3.0 is prompts. Huh.
And so I see this as quite new, unique. It's a new kind of a computer. And so in my mind, it's worth giving it a new designation of Software 3.0. And basically, your prompts are now programs that program the LLM.
I would argue that software 3.0 is actually closer to software 1.0. It's just that the LLMs are a compiler, right? I mean, isn't that all it is that the LLM is really just a compiler at this point? It's just a stochastic compiler that doesn't quite generate the same thing every single time, depending on the day, the month, the words you use and all that. Isn't software 2.0 like relying on kind of these tuned statistical models to just do one activity really, really well? And this one is actually more closer to this one where you're just like, I'm going to program a computer. I'm just going to compile English into code, and then hopefully the code then runs.
And remarkably, these prompts are written in English. So it's kind of a very interesting programming language. So maybe to summarize the difference, if you're doing sentiment classification, for example, you can imagine writing some amount of Python to basically do sentiment classification, or you can train a neural net, or you can prompt a large language model. So here, this is a few-shot prompt, and you can imagine changing it and programming the computer in a slightly different way. So basically, we have software 1.0, software 2.0, and I think we're seeing, maybe you've seen a lot of GitHub code is not just like code anymore.
Okay, I see what he's saying. So if you look at this thing right here, if you look at Python software 1, you literally have like a hard-coded set of words, right? You have two set of hard-coded set words, and you're saying, hey, if we're in the positive, then you get more score. If you're in the negative, you get less score, and we ignore all other words, right? And so then we can say, hey, this thing was positive. But okay, so you see the idea. Then this one is that you go and you give a whole bunch of positive examples, whole bunch of negative examples. You create the MLP that effectively has all the tuned, all the tuned weights to be able to do this kind of binary classifier. Maybe you have two MLPs, one for doing positive, one for doing negative. Bada bing, bada boom, right? It just kind of works. You do that, little training business. And then this one is that it like, you don't need all the examples. You don't need all this. It's all kind of already built into this one. Okay, I don't really get the difference between the two. Well, what he's saying is that in software 2.0, you train one of these neural nets for like a specific use case. Does that make sense? So it's like, I am training software, or I'm training this neural net to solve this one singular problem. Whereas, with the LLMs, I mean, they're just massive MLPs in many, many ways, that it's just like, instead it has every problem effectively solved underneath it.
A different way. So basically, we have software 1.0,
so they just trained more, got it,
software 2.0, and I think we're seeing, maybe you've seen a lot of GitHub code is not just like code anymore. There's a bunch of like English interspersed with code. And so I think kind of there's a growing category of new kind of code. So not only is it a new programming paradigm, it's also remarkable to me that it's in our native language of English. And so when this blew my mind a few, I guess, years ago now, I tweeted this, and
I still hate this. I hate this. The reason why I hate this is that English is ambiguous. I've been trained in programming languages in which cannot be ambiguous. Right? You cannot. That's the entire point of a parse tree and all this stuff, is that you cannot have two different states that can be created by the same syntax. And so having English, where English has all these nuances to it, you have this like entire weirdness that just crops up. Esperanto? Yes, we should be using Esperanto. Bros will do anything except for learn how to program. The AI bros will literally learn Esperanto to have a concrete language. Software 2. Damn. It's not a graph. It's 2 code eats code 1. Okay, so somehow code 1 relinquished control from. Yeah, anyways, I don't know how to read this graph, but I understand the general concept, which is there was a bunch of C++ code. Now a lot of the C++ code is being removed or being effectively replaced with neural nets, which actually makes sense. Like this is a very sensible thing. What was that, big boy? No, I don't want any eggs. But thank you though. This is a perfectly reasonable thing. I would hope that my car is not literally hard-coded switch statements. Can we all agree that would actually be terrifying if this was just a bunch of switch statements that can't like change? I don't know. I'm just quite convinced that the devs couldn't figure out every situation. Instead, I want to take all those switch statements. I want to turn it into a matrix that has like 900 million switch statements, and then boom, call that it, right? It's broken programmer's hand, yeah. It's a bunch of, so I mean, neural nets are just a bunch of if statements.
And they're doing image recognition.
Partial
And
if statements.
I kind of observed that over time, as we made the autopilot better, basically the neural network grew in capability and size. And in addition to that, all the C++ code was being deleted and kind of like was, and a lot of the kind of capabilities and functionality.
All right, we got to go back to this graph just for one more second. I think that if I were to understand this graph, sorry, it's really bothering me. I know, okay, this is obviously autism moment. Just let me have it, okay? If I were to make this graph, I would have something that looks like this. If this is C++ code, okay? I know, here we go, we got to go back. This would be the software 2.0 code, right? And this would be time, okay? And this would be 100% of code, right? You know what I mean? And so you get this like nice, slowly filling in, taking over gap where you're just like, okay, I got this. I see what happens as like time goes on. We're taking up more and more of the slice with this code versus that code. But this, my brain just wants to understand it, okay? Because he keeps saying these words that make me think like this. But then it looks like that, and I'm so triggered right now, dude. I know this is ridiculous. Instead of looking at the graph, looking at his volume, it still bothers me. Okay.
Some neural nets in there doing image recognition. Basically, the neural network grew in capability and size, and in addition to that, all the C++ code was being deleted and kind of like was, and a lot of the kind of capability.
Oh, like that. Like this graph. That's what you're saying? You're saying like the neural net grew in size and capabilities, and then the C++ code was getting shrunk like that graph. Okay, I can't help it. I know I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go right now. Okay.
And functionality that was originally written in 1.0 was migrated to 2.0. Yeah. So as an example, a lot of the stitching up of information across images from the different cameras and across time was done by a neural network, and we were able to delete a lot of code. And so the software 2.0 stack quite literally ate through the software stack of the autopilot. So I thought this was really remarkable at the time. And I think we're seeing the same thing again, where basically we have a new kind of software, and it's eating through the stack. We have 3 completely different programming paradigms. And I think if you're entering the...
This makes more sense. Okay, I can understand this. This feels good. This feels good. Hey, again, would have chosen something like this, but we're just gonna, you know, I'm just saying you could have also started having something right here. You know what I'm just saying? We could have just, you know what I mean?
Industry, it's a very good idea to be fluent in all of them, because they all have slight pros and cons, and you may want to program some functionality in 1.0 or 2.0 or 3.0. Are you going to train a neural net? Are you going to just prompt an LLM? Should this be a piece of code that's explicit, etc.? So we'll have to...
It's at least an interesting take. At least he's not like an LLM maxi that's just like, oh, all things should be solved with LLMs. I still think there's a lot of great things that you can solve, even with simple neural nets like radial basis functions. I still think that they could do a whole bunch for real-time gaming that people just aren't taking advantage of because they're so dang cheap. They're so cheap and so easy to understand, and they work over a fixed range, and it's beautiful, right? Like I actually really I think there's some cool stuff that you could do
to make these decisions and actually potentially fluidly transition between these paradigms. So
or code, amazing. Well, I mean, what I mean by that is that there's some problems that code sucks, right? Code just sucks at certain problems. Hey, dog. Is this a Waterloo bubble water? Like that's a crappy problem to solve. Okay, that's not a code problem. Okay, you just, oh, sorry, the light was slightly off. Turns out your code sucks and can't understand it because the light was just slightly different than it was before. Right? You know what I mean? That's what sucks so bad about like just code. That's what makes LLM so amazing, is that you just like, is this it? And it's like, yeah, that's probably it.
What I wanted to get into now is, first, I want to, in the first part, talk about LLMs and how to kind of like think of this new paradigm and the ecosystem and what that looks like. Like what is this new computer? What does it look like? And what does the ecosystem look like? I was struck by this quote from Andrej actually many years ago now, I think. And I think Andrej is going to be speaking right after me. But he said at the time, AI is the new electricity. And
I think I understand what he's attempting to say here is that electricity was a fundamental change to how society works. And he's claiming that AI is going to be that fundamental change, just like electricity was. Still, the statement just seems pretty ridiculous. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, those kind of statements are always just a little bit ridiculous to say. You know what I mean? They just feel a little bit ridiculous. They look a little bit. You know what I mean? It just feels weird.
I do think that it kind of captures something very interesting in that LLMs certainly feel like they have properties of utilities right now. So LLM labs like OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, et cetera, they spend CapEx to train the LLMs, and this is kind of equivalent to building out a grid. And then there's OpEx to serve that intelligence over APIs to all of us. And this is done through metered access, where we pay per million tokens or something like that. And we have a lot of demands that are very utility-like demands out of this API. We demand low latency.
I mean, I guess you can make anything kind of feel like it. I don't like this analogy. I don't look at LLMs like utilities. I'm not really, because, you know, that's just not how I'm going to look at this. I think you could try to fit it into this and say, hey, it's kind of like it. But I don't know. This seems like a bit of a stretch.
High uptime, consistent quality, etc. In electricity, you would have a transfer switch, so you can transfer your electricity source from like grid and solar or battery or generator. In LLMs, we have maybe open router and easily switch between the different types of LLMs that exist. Because the LLMs are software, they don't compete for physical space. So it's okay to have basically like 6 electricity providers, and you can switch between them, right? Because they don't compete in such a direct way.
Yeah.
And I think what's also a little fascinating, and we saw this in the last few days actually, a lot of the LLMs went down, and people were kind of like stuck and unable to work. And I think it's kind of fascinating to me that when the state-of-the-art LLMs go down, it's actually kind of like an intelligence brownout in a way.
Dude, that's a terrifying statement. That's a terrifying statement. An intelligence brownout. Do you really want? Bitch, you live like this? There's something about that. I think, you know, there's something so true about this, though. Like, he really is pointing out something that's actually an incredible statement, which is that there is this, like, there's this entire critical thinking path that people have relied on for so long. And now, for the first time, instead of just offloading, say, memorizing phone numbers, memorizing emails, or even having my calendar automatically let me know, as opposed to me looking at my calendar, right? There's like an entire kind of world that we've already browned out, if you will, that if one of these services go down, you're just like, dude, I missed like 4 meetings. My calendar wasn't working, right? Like, I get this. Like, this does happen because we're so willing to offload stuff. But the idea of like critical thinking being the thing you're offloading, and then when it goes down, you're just like, I can't do anything. Like, to me, that's like it's a very separate thing. I'm not sure if I want to be in on the cognitive outsourcing. I get it for researching and doing stuff, but man, cognitive outsourcing, that seems a little disturbing. You know what I mean? Brownout, okay, for those that don't know what a brownout is, just in case you're wondering, whenever you have like an area, like let's just say you have an area like this, and there's like a section of the area that doesn't have power, they call this a brownout, right? It's not a blackout. A blackout is when there's like nothing. A brownout is when there's some amount of stuff out, but not everything out. Okay. Right? A whiteout is everything works. Yeah, I guess if we're going to keep on going with this analogy, which I think, it's like the idea of lights on and off. So there you go.
It's kind of like when the voltage is unreliable in the grid and the planet just gets dumber, the more reliance we have on these models, which already...
Dude, that has to be kind of a scary statement. The planet gets dumber with the more reliance we have on these models. Huh. Okay. Why not a gray out? I agree a gray out sounds much better than a brown out. If it's a blackout for everything's off, then a gray out would be like partially off. I'm actually much more on board for a gray out because a brown out really is just kind of confusing. Maybe there's like maybe there's a reason why that does exist. But either way, that's like a terrifying statement.
Is like really dramatic and I think will continue to grow. But LLMs don't only have properties of utilities. I think it's also fair to say that they have some properties of fabs. And the reason for this is that the capex required for building LLMs is actually quite large. It's not just like building some power station or something like that, right? You're investing a huge amount of money, and I think the tech tree and for the technology is growing quite rapidly. So we're in a world where we have sort of deep tech trees, research and development, secrets that are centralizing inside the LLM labs. But I think the analogy muddies a little bit also because, as I mentioned, this is software. And software is a bit less defensible because it is so malleable. And so I think it's just an interesting kind of...
I mean, I think what I'm learning from this presentation, at least in this current moment, is that you can make complex topics, when you simplify them, look like a lot of other things. Right? You can metaphor something pretty easily, is what I'm kind of gathering at this point. That's at least how I'm reading this, is just like you just compared it to a utility, and now you're comparing it to a fabrication lab. And you're like, okay, if he says quantum, I'm out. I don't think he's gonna say quantum. Quantum and AI hasn't quite hit the super AI hype mainstream, but there's coming a day. I just want you guys to know that we are gonna have quantum AI, and it's gonna be the single-handed end of the hype cycle universe. Yeah, our brains love rational starting points. I just don't get this.
There's many
honestly,
analogies
I don't
you can
quite
make.
buy
like
this.
A 4-nanometer process node maybe is something like a cluster with certain max flops. You can think about when you're using NVIDIA GPUs and you're only doing the software and you're not doing the hardware. That's kind of like the fabless model.
Right.
But if you're actually also building your own hardware and you're training on TPUs, if you're Google, that's kind of like the Intel model where you own your fab. So I think there's some analogies here that make sense. But actually, I think the analogy that makes the most sense, perhaps, is that in my mind, LLMs have very strong kind of analogies to operating systems. In that this is not just electricity or water. It's not something that comes out on a tap as a commodity. These are now increasingly complex software ecosystems.
Okay.
Right? So they're not just like simple commodities like electricity. And it's kind of interesting to me that the ecosystem is shaping in a very similar kind of way, where you have a few closed source providers like Windows or Mac OS, and then you have an open source alternative like Linux. And I think for LLMs as well, we have a kind of a few competing closed source providers, and then maybe the Llama ecosystem is currently like maybe a close approximation to something that may grow into something.
Again, I think, you just have a complex enough topic, you can just make analogies out of anything. Because, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that, right? But you could pretty much say that about everything, right? Right? Like note-taking apps, you have Google Keep, you have Notion, and then you have the open source version. So it's kind of like an operating system, like Google Keep is kind of like Windows, and Notion's kind of like Mac OS. And then you have, right? Like, I mean, you could kind of just like this, it's like an infinite, it's like you could just like apply very complex topics with simple diameters. You could apply it to pretty much every single situation. So I don't understand this whole operating system
Again,
thing
I think it's
I'm going
to
need a
these are
diagram.
just simple LLMs, but we're starting to see that these are going to get a lot more complicated. It's not just about the LLM itself. It's about all the tool use and the multimodalities and how all of that works. And so when I sort of had this realization a while back, I tried to sketch it out. And it kind of seemed to me like LLMs are kind of like a new operating system, right? So the LLM is a new kind of a computer. It's kind of like the CPU equivalent. The context windows are kind of like the memory. And then the LLM is orchestrating memory and compute for problem solving using all of these capabilities here. And so definitely, if you look at it, it looks very much like operating system from that perspective.
I think my statement stands true. I think my statement stands true that given a complex enough topic, you can make it look like anything. I honestly think that if we tried hard enough, we could also make LLMs look like the animal kingdom. Like we could just be like, you know, it actually shares a lot in common with natural selection, and here's why. Right? Like I think you could just do it. Like right? I think we could just do these things because you can just do these things because it's complex enough.
A few more analogies. For example, if you want to download an app, say I go to VS Code and I go to download, you can download VS Code and you can run it on Windows, Linux, or Mac. In the same way as you can take an LLM app like Cursor and you can run it on GPT or Claude or Gemini series, right? It's just a drop down. So it's kind of like...
It kind of like, but this analogy kind of defeats your whole operating system thing because this is like an inversion of control issue going on here. It's like actually perfectly backwards. Because now you could argue that Cursor's more like the operating system. You know what I'm talking about? I think, you know, what I'm really learning here is that everything breaks down into Kubernetes. Am I wrong here? Is like everything just Kubernetes? Is that what I'm seeing here? Okay. Hey. Okay. You know, hell yeah, brother.
More analogies that I think strike me is that we're kind of like in this 1960s-ish era where LLM compute is still very expensive for this new kind of a computer. And that forces the LLMs to be centralized in the cloud. And we're all just sort of thin clients that interact with it over the network.
I would just like to say... Dang. Thank you for that raid. Thank you, T2, for that raid of 55 people. I appreciate that. I don't know if this is a real image or a fake image, but the fact that it's called the Wang 3300 Basic, that's a pretty exciting piece of technology, dude. I want that, dude. Did the FTX guy create this? Is this the backdoor Wang? That's AIAF. Yeah, I know it's AIAF. Like, dude, look at this wall. Is it going off into infinity, or is she just is she on the edge that it is, or is it an AI image? That this seems reasonable. If I go to my bookmarks and I look at this right here, in 2 to 4 years, if we're still alive, anytime you see a video this beautiful, your first thought will be to wonder whether it's real or if AI prompt was beautiful video of 15 different moth species flapping their wings, professional photography, 8K trending on Twitter. This was 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. So, like, we just had that happen to us. So he, like, literally nailed it in 2 to 4 years, except for it's the other way around. It's like any image that defies some of our basic expectation, we're just going to immediately go, oh, yeah, that's AI. That's AI. That's AI. It's probably AI. Oh, Thor was discussing this today. That's Thor's awesome. I like some of his AI takes. I think he has some good AI takes out there. We semi-align on the old AI. All right.
And none of us have full utilization of these computers, and therefore, it makes sense to use time sharing where we're all just, you know, a dimension of the batch when they're running the computer in the cloud. And this is very much what computers used to look like during this time. The operating systems were in the cloud, everything was...
Again, I don't think he's going to make the analogy that AI is going to be coming to our pocket and we will be the owner of AI. I think he will continue to say that corporations really will own us. They will own intelligence, and that we'll have a psychological dependency now on all these corporations. We're no longer just relying on corporations for, say, our calendar, for, say, our email and communications. We now rely on corporations for our cognitive abilities, which there's very interesting world that we live in.
Streamed around, and there was batching. And so the personal computing revolution hasn't happened yet because it's just not economical. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I think some people are trying. And it turns out that Mac Minis, for example, are a very good fit for some of the LLMs because it's all, if you're doing batch one inference, this is all super memory bound, so this actually...
$2, $4, $6, $8,000 for 10 tokens a second on quantization 4, right? Like, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy, right? You don't get a lot of speed when you map all these things together. It's a little painful. It's a little painful.
Works. And I think these are some early indications maybe of personal computing, but this hasn't really happened yet. It's not clear what this looks like. Maybe some of you get to invent what this is or how it works. Or
Yeah, for us to actually have economical AI that actually is worth it, which by the way, that doesn't involve burning down rainforests just to be able to run stupid queries like how to boil an egg or some like just like how to make breakfast. How do I do like just like the dumbest possible thing you can possibly imagine. Like if you could imagine yourself asking the dumbest question, that literally causes the world to catch on fire. Like how to boil water, right? Like exactly, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy what is being asked. And so for this to become economical to the point where it's actually worth it, it needs to become 1,000x more efficient, which is wild, which is like a wild number to get to considering how many eyes have already been looking at it at this point. It's going to be an interesting world for us to get to that point.
What this should be. Maybe one more analogy that I'll mention is whenever I talk to ChatGPT or some LLM directly in text, I feel like I'm talking to an operating system through the terminal. Like it's text, it's direct access to the operating system, and I think a GUI hasn't yet really been invented in like a general way. Like, should ChatGPT have a GUI, like different than just the text bubbles? Certainly some of the apps that we're gonna go into in a bit have GUI, but there's no like GUI across all the tasks, if that makes sense. There are some ways
these are
in
some
which
pretty light
LLMs
analogies.
Are
we're gonna let the
from
guys. We're gonna let the metaphor continue. I'm gonna let the metaphor happen. I would just like to point out my graph just one more time. Can we just one more time? Can we just look at it for a quick second? Okay, just that's all I have to say. Okay, now that I got that out of the way, we can go on.
Of operating systems in some fairly unique way and from early computing. And I wrote about this one particular property that strikes me as very different this time around. It's that LLMs like flip the direction of technology diffusion that is usually present in technology. So for example, with electricity, cryptography, computing, flight, internet, GPS, lots of new transformative technologies that have not been around. Typically, It is the government and corporations that are the first users because it's new and expensive, et cetera, and it only later diffuses to consumer. But I feel like LLMs are kind of like flipped around. So maybe with early computers, it was all about building.
This is actually a really good point. This is a very unique thing, which is that, like if you think about how the internet was invented, DARPA, 1960, whatever, right? That was largely used by various universities. The first basic bit things going on were universities, and then it slowly kind of went through all these things, and then consumers really were the last part of this. And then when you get into, missile ballistics was like just computers themselves for a long time. Like that's how we did all the calculations for World War II was just all this nonsense. Hey, thank you very much, Defiasol, for a gifted sub to Pokimane. That's very nice of you. Appreciate that. And so you can see that this is, I can see this, and LLMs, have largely been the other way around. And I think a good reason why LLMs are the other way around is that how are corporations supposed to even take advantage of them at a corporate level? Like you actually have to be able to wholesale out a position and then rely on it. And every corporation that has attempted to make that jump, I'm thinking about you, Klarna, and IBM as well. Both of you have made that jump and then have regretted it and rehired everyone back because you said, oh yeah, it actually doesn't work. We thought it would work. It didn't work. And so I can see that this makes sense, right? Okay, I'm currently purchasing this.
With LLMs, it's all about how do you boil an egg or something like that. This is certainly like a lot of my use. And so it's really fascinating to me that we have a new magical computer. and it's like helping me boil an egg. It's not helping the government do something really crazy like some military ballistics or some special technology. Indeed, corporations are government.
And please also don't use LLMs for military ballistics. Please, like for like dude, it cannot even count the amount of semitones between music. Please don't use rocket. Don't. The rocket knows where it is because it knows where it isn't. Okay. Don't do it the other way around. Too late, bucko. Please, I'm begging you.
Are
Please
lagging
don't do it.
behind the adoption of all of us, of all of these technologies. So it's just backwards. And I think it informs maybe some of the uses of how we want to use this technology, or like what are some of the first apps and so on. So in summary so far, LLM Labs, fab LLMs, I think it's accurate language to use. But LLMs are complicated operating systems. They're circa 1960s in computing, and we're redoing computing all over again. And they're currently available via time sharing and distributed like a utility. What is new and unprecedented is that they're not in the hands of a few governments and corporations. They're in the hands of all of us, because we all have a computer, and it's all just software. And
Okay. I get the analogies. Like, we can all, like, if we're going to be fair, I understand what he's attempting to say. It requires a kabajillion of dollars. It has inputs and outputs. And we currently use it in a time-sharing fashion because it is too uneconomical for us ourselves to run. Okay.
GPT was beamed down to our computers, like to billions of people, like instantly and overnight. And this is insane. And it's kind of insane to me that this is the case, and now it is our time to enter the industry and program these computers. This is crazy. So I think this is quite remarkable. Before we program LLMs, we have to kind of like spend some time to think about what these things are. And I especially like to kind of.
I don't like to use the word even. I don't even like to use the word people spirits. Okay, fantastic. Great name right here. I don't even like to use the term psychology. I don't want to personify them. I want to personify them as little as possible.
Talk about their psychology. So the way I like to think about LLMs is that they're kind of like people spirits.
No.
They are stochastic simulations of people. And the simulator in this case happens to be an autoregressive transformer. So a transformer is a neural net. And it just kind of like goes on the level of tokens. It goes chunk, 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 chunk. And there's an almost equal amount of compute for every single chunk.
Which, by the way, is fundamentally not how humans work. Just so you know, your brains don't do that. Your brains actually largely ignore most things, and it takes like 100 neurons for you to be able to see a cat. You know, for you to look at a cat, it takes like virtually nothing. It takes literally the smallest amount of energy in the universe. It doesn't have to chunk the entire scene to go cat. You can just see the cat because your brain is super amazing. It's not human spirits. I think it's much better to just say reflections of the statistical response of a human. Like, I just don't understand why we can't.
This simulator, of course, is basically there's some weights involved, and we fit it to all of text that we have on the internet and so on. And you end up with this kind of a simulator. And because it is trained on humans, it's got this emergent psychology that is human-like.
At least he puts psychology in quotes. Okay, he puts psychology in quotes, which is good. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it appears to have psychological things. And I think a lot of the reasons why it appears to have psychological, whatever we call this, is because it communicates in human language. And so we then read it with our, like, how we think. And so therefore it's just like this. It communicates on our levels. Yeah, it LARPs. And so it makes us feel as if it has some sort of psychology going to it.
Of course, LLMs have encyclopedic knowledge and memory.
Autism spotted.
And they can remember lots of things, a lot more than any single individual human can, because they read so many things. It actually kind of reminds me of this movie, Rain Man, which I actually really recommend people watch. It's an amazing movie. I love this movie.
By the way, did he just admit that the LLMs are massively destroying copyright? Did we just hear him say out loud that LLMs are just massively copyright infringement going on? Because that would be, at least in my head, pretty illegal. It memorizes all these books because it read all the books. How'd it read all the books, Andrej? It's crazy.
And Dustin Hoffman here is an autistic savant, who has almost perfect memory. So he can read he can read like a phone book and remember all of the names and phone numbers. And I kind of feel like LLMs are kind of like very similar. They can remember SHA hashes and lots of different kinds of things very, very easily. So
it's so interesting that he says those things, like they remember SHA hashes and all these things really, really easily. I mean, they also can't play chess just given like a situation. If you just hand it a board and say, what move next, it doesn't pick a good move. I mean, it's hard for it to pick even a legal move. And that is because it doesn't, again, it's just like stats. It's not that it has this like great memory. It's just like if a board looks like this, then it can look like that. It's like it doesn't really remember SHAs. It's just like SHAs look like this.
I would say cognitive deficits. So they hallucinate quite a bit. And they kind of make up stuff and don't have a very good sort of internal model of self-knowledge.
For those that don't know, like this makes people that think they don't hallucinate a lot, try asking questions in a less understood area of an LLM. Like try like Strudel, the music thing that I'm using right now for anyone that hasn't seen it. The Strudel thing, music thing, look at it go. Right, super cool. I'm probably on like question 50 to it, asking it to re-go through its question, re-go through its answers and all that. It literally just makes up stuff constantly. Like it can't even produce sound. It is so broken and so filled with hallucinations. It is just redonkulous. Just read the docs. I am reading the docs, but sometimes the docs are very, very confusing. Such as when you look at chunk and you're like, oh, okay, what's chunk? I want to look at chunk. Right? Oh, you can already see that I've looked at chunk. It's like divides the pattern into a given number of parts, then cycles through the parts in turn, applying the given function to each part. And you're like, how does this work? I want to try this. And then it divides it, but then when you watch it, it like hops back and forth in a way that's really hard to understand. And I don't really get it. And I'm trying to get it. And it's difficult, and I'm reading through them, and so I have to do different things. I have to kind of work through it in a different fashion. So I'm just trying to ask it like, hey, could you maybe explain it to me a little bit better? Right? Yeah, I'm going to have to give it the entire docs and see if I can try to make it work a little bit different. I need a different way to go about it because the current way does not work. Wrong and confident. Anyways.
Not sufficient, at least. And this has gotten better, but not perfect. They display jagged intelligence. So they're going to be superhuman in some problem-solving domains, and then they're going to make mistakes that basically no human will make, like they will insist that 9.11 is greater than 9.9, or that there are 2 R's in strawberry. These are some famous examples. But basically, there are rough edges that you can trip on. So that's kind of, I think, also kind of unique. They also kind of suffer from anterograde amnesia. And I think I'm alluding to the fact that if you have a coworker who joins your organization, this coworker will, over time, learn your organization, and they will understand and gain like a huge amount of context on the organization, and they go home and they sleep and they consolidate knowledge and they develop expertise over time. LLMs don't natively do this, and this is not something that has really been solved in the R&D of LLMs, I think. And so context windows are really kind of like working memory, and you have to sort of program the working memory quite directly because they don't just kind of like get smarter by default. And I think a lot of people get tripped up by the analogies in this way.
Wasn't there just like a story about some guy who had a girlfriend? I saw some brief snippet about it on some show or some podcast about a guy who had a girlfriend that was AI, and then its context window ran out, so his girlfriend disappeared, and then he like cried and was sad about it. Like, that's all I know. I saw some like small snippet. I saw Charlie had a video on it. I didn't watch Charlie's video, but I saw like just some snippet about it, and I was just like, dude, that can't be real. This can't be, dude, this seems insane that a guy fell in love with like a model and then its context window fell out, then he died and he cried and he was so sad about it. It's crazy.
Culture, I recommend people watch these 2 movies, Memento and 50 First Dates. In both of these movies,
I did not like Memento.
The protagonist.
And by the way, the Memento, dude, he has context. Look at that context window. What the hell are my kids doing? Look at his context window.
Their weights are fixed, and their context windows gets wiped every single morning, and it's really problematic to go to work or have relationships when this happens, and this happens to LLMs all the time. I guess one more thing I would point to is security kind of related limitations of the use of LLMs.
Yeah.
So for example, LLMs are quite gullible. They are susceptible to prompt injection risks. They might leak your data, etc. And so, and there's many other considerations.
Wait, what does it mean they might leak your data? How would they leak your data if they don't? Wouldn't that mean they first have to have your data? How'd they get your data, Andrej? I feel like, I know, my kids are writing. I'm going to go tell them to shut up. Hold on. I'm going to be right back. But how'd they get your data, Andrej? Yo, kiddos. Okay, I don't care.
Them, and how do we work around their deficits and enjoy
Yeah,
their
it's uncanny, but I
superhuman
can't even
powers?
say it's uncanny because I can't even recognize
So
the
what I
fact
want
that
to
it's
switch to
uncanny.
now is talk about the opportunities of how do we use these models and what are some of the
All right.
biggest opportunities. This is not a comprehensive list, just some of the things that I thought were interesting for this talk. The first thing I'm kind of excited about is what I would call partial autonomy apps. So for example, let's work with the example of coding. You can certainly go to ChatGPT directly, and you can start copy-pasting code around. And
I don't know how many times I have to say, this is honestly one of the largest reasons why I never used ChatGPT at all during the first couple years. It being its own chat app was just, it is just purely worthless for me. To even like look up examples, it is just so dang annoying. Right? Because it took so long. It would take 2 minutes to get things out. And it was just like, dude, this is just a horrible experience. The fact that OpenAI did not just immediately start making, oh my gosh. I just can't believe they didn't immediately start making an app.
copy-pasting bug
for these
reports and
things.
stuff around and getting code and copy-pasting everything around. Why would you do that? Why would you go directly to the operating system? It makes a lot more sense to have an app dedicated for this. And so I think many of you use Cursor. I do as well. And Cursor is kind of like the thing you want instead. You don't want to just directly go to the ChatGPT. And I think Cursor is a very good example of an early LLM app that has a bunch of properties that I think are useful across all the LLM apps.
I do agree. I like the fact that I can tag like rules or I can tag files in Cursor and that I can do a good job at identifying these rules and these files and kind of get like the context together correctly to do stuff. I do think that that's pretty cool. Like what they did and what they saw right away, I thought that was like, that's a good idea. Good job. Good job, Cursor, right? Like that was really good. That was a good plan because it does make it objectively better. I still don't like vibe-coded apps or even partially vibe-coded apps. I still have the same problem, which is every single time this happens, I ultimately feel like if I want to take my app from a toy project into something that's real, I have to still just hand code everything. And it just always comes to this exact same conclusion every single time. I don't want it to be that way. I just always feel that way. I just don't know what to do with it. It just makes me feel that way. And maybe someday, maybe this is just me. Maybe I'm a boomer. I accept my boomerness and that I'm not the future of software and I'm just a dinosaur that's slowly going extinct. Fine, I'll give you that. But I have a hard time letting an app get too big under vibe coding. I feel really I don't know, I just feel genuinely super lost with it, you know? I feel super lost and it makes me super confused and I just feel like I have all the ideas of an app that works, but I've only ever like lightly code reviewed it and that's it. And so therefore I don't actually know what's happening. And then every time I read code, like I don't understand the transformation of data and its shape. And it's like I just feel confused. If that makes sense. I just feel confused. That's all.
That we have a traditional interface that allows a human to go in and do all the work manually, just as before. But in addition to that, we now have this LLM interface.
I do want to say one other thing because I really did try to vibe code really hard. Like not just kind of vibe code. I tried I went with I'm gonna vibe code the most vibe codey thing. Oh, I already took it down. Okay, I already took it down. What's it called? Let me go like this. Chessie, jump over here. Go run this. No, that's the Stockfish one. Go run. It's Twitch redirect. This one. There we go. All right, and if I go here and I go localhost this guy, and I do a quick login, the login I did all with AI, that was great. But pretty much this whole app is largely vibe coded, and so is this admin panel. The admin panel is purely vibe coded, and it's just at this point where some problems exist, and my only solution is like, dude, the data transfer and the state and how state is set up is just like so insane in my head that the only reasonable answer is that I have to effectively redo the entire data model all the way through, and there's no other simple solution. Who won the Anna Kramling match? We did it. And so it's like, I feel like if I vibe code regularly, my brain becomes lazy. Yes. And here's a crazy thing that started happening. I started doing this a bunch, building this application. And while I was doing it, I actually realized that I stopped kind of working, and I'd have like two things being vibed at the same time. And I'd have like a good 5 minutes waiting for like something to be done. And it's just like, I just wouldn't really program. It's just like I found myself in this weird, distracted consumerism mentality of like things are running, what's on Twitter. It's just like this weird world that was going on in my head. And I actually, like, I realized what I was doing. It took me a while to kind of understand it, but I realized that I was like really just sitting back in my own head, which is a really weird experience. But I really wanted to, I'm genuinely trying to understand these things. I genuinely am trying to say like, hey, I'm a good prompter, because that's always the big thing that, dude, I get it every single time I say anything negative about AI, that people are like, oh, well, the real problem, dude, I've seen you prompt. I already know. Here's the thing is that you're actually really not good. And you just don't, it's like, no, actually I've made some apps. I'm understanding it. I think I have a fairly good idea of what actually makes a good one versus a bad one. And now it's like, when I do it, I just find all these weird, like, second order effects in my body, and I don't really know how to think through them yet. Anyways, we need more skibbity prompts.
And so some of the properties of LLM apps that I think are shared.
Also, the single worst C++ thing of all time. This is right. Isn't this a syntax error? Am I correct on this? That you need a space between these two things. I can't remember what causes this. Am I wrong on this one? There's like a little space needed. Isn't there some situation in which you need a space? Not anymore. Okay, well, it was a thing. There was a space needed under some certain compiler, right? I feel like I remember running into this, that there was this situation where I needed a space somewhere, and I can't remember why. Most vexing parts. Yes, there was like a situation in C++ 11. Oh, it's not an issue anymore. Dude, most of the world's on C++ 11. Okay, hate to break it to you.
Useful to point out.
Oh, get with the times, old man.
The LLMs basically do a ton of the context management.
Go to any corporation.
Number two, they orchestrate multiple calls to LLMs, right? So in the case of Cursor, there's
I left Netflix in 2014 or 2024, and we still were C++ 11.
Under the hood embedding models for all your files, the actual chat models, models that apply diffs to the code, and this is all orchestrated for you. A really big one that I think also maybe not fully appreciated always is application-specific GUI and the importance of it. Because you don't just want to talk to the operating system directly in text. Text is very hard to read, interpret, understand, and also—
I actually love talking to the operating system with text and all this stuff.
So like you don't want to take some
Wrong
of these
audience
actions
here.
natively in text.
Terminal's not
it's much better to just
a
see
utility
a diff
for me.
as like
It's
red
part of my
and green
personality.
change, and you can see what's being added or subtracted. It's much easier to just do Command Y to accept or Command N to reject. I shouldn't have to type it in text, right? So a GUI allows a human to audit the work of these fallible systems and to go faster. I'm going to come back to this point a little bit later as well.
I'm still actually not sure if it makes you go faster. I know like people do move faster and all that. I just don't, again, this is old man yelling at clouds. I don't know. I've been proven wrong, though. I know somebody that's really good at it.
There's what I call the autonomy slider. So for example, in Cursor, you can just do tab completion. You're mostly in charge. You can select a chunk of code and Command K to change just that chunk of code. You can do Command L to change the entire file, or you can do Command I, which just let her rip, do whatever you want in the entire repo. And that's the sort of full autonomy agentic version.
I do like that, by the way, with Cursor, where you can Command K a certain function. And you're just like, when we were doing the game programming stuff, I'm like, hey, help me with this distance formula. I need to be able to walk a path. Can you help me with this? Okay, hey, can you do this? Like, I actually really liked that, like, being able to do, like, specific kind of autocomplete in very small little situations. I really did like that.
You
That
are
was
in charge
really
of the autonomy slider. And depending on the complexity of the task at hand, you can tune the amount of autonomy that you're willing to give up for that task. Maybe to show one more example of a fairly successful LLM app, Perplexity. It also has very similar features to what I've just pointed out in Cursor. It packages up a lot of the information. It orchestrates multiple LLMs. It's got a GUI that allows you to audit some of its work. So for example, it will cite sources, and you can imagine inspecting them. And it's got an autonomy slider. You can either just do a quick...
You can imagine inspecting them. I wonder how many people that use AI to summarize stuff and given sources, like how many people are actually going through the sources. I wonder if source visiting has gone dramatically down because there's like a reliance on the LLMs themselves. I'm curious about that.
Search, or you can do research, or you can do deep research and come back 10 minutes later. So this is all just very...
I know there's a couple people saying I do, but you guys are also...
So I guess my question is...
Dude, this is a chat full of autists, okay? This is a very, like, everyone that's in this chat at this moment is not normal people, okay? You do not reflect... I'm not saying you're far on the bell curve in the smartness. I'm just saying you're not normal. Okay? This is not... I'm not calling you smart. It's just you're different, okay? Hi, friends.
I feel like a lot of software will become partially autonomous. And I'm trying to think through, like, what does that look like? And for many of you who maintain products and services, how are you going to make your products and services partially autonomous? Can an LLM see everything that a human can see? Can an LLM act in all the ways that a human could act? And can humans supervise and stay in the loop of this activity? Because again, these are fallible systems that aren't yet perfect. What does a diff look like in Photoshop or something?
Can you ever have a system designed by humans that could be perfect? Can imperfect beings create something that is perfect?
Like that, you know? And also, a lot of the traditional software right now, it has all these switches and all this kind of stuff that's all designed for human. All of this has to change and become accessible to LLMs. So one thing I want to stress with a lot of these LLM apps that I'm not sure gets...
Someone saying math, for example, first off, math is not something we created, okay? Math is just something we purely observed, okay? Math is not a creation, it's an observation. Those are two very, very different things. So, no, you can't, you in fact can't say that we created math. Disagree? Fine. Go for it. Disagree all you want. Math is 100% creation. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're totally right, chat. You're totally right. Hey, get back to that. Hey, you know, that subreddit needs some moderation, buddy. You better get back there. Yeah, I don't think so. Imaginary numbers are extremely useful and happen all the time. Okay, controversial. I don't think it's controversial. I think we are discovering it. That's it. Newton just happened to get hit in the head and was like, "Damn, these like look like." We created we definitely created the notation ourselves. True, factual, base 10 calculations. True. Truing, not arguing that one at all. Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say that, right? We created the language of it. Yes. Anyways, the notation is invented. Yes, but the facts it states are observed. Boom. That's what I'm saying. The arbitrary choice of base, because we got little 10 little fingies, that's at least how I assume we got base 10 counting, is because we got little 10 little fingies and we're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. Oh shit! What do we do? One would assume that's where we came from. That's at least how I assume we got base 10. It's due to 10 toesies. Oh damn! It's 10 toesies, not fingsies. I mean, we could have been counting in base, like, think about it. We could have been counting in base 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, right? Like, isn't that way better? Like, wasn't that way better to count in base 2? Look at that. I've only used 4 fingers so far, and I'm at 15. So simple, an undergrad can even understand it. 10-bit human, 132, baby. Are you bragging? Yeah, I am. I am bragging. Because base 2 is better than base 10, idiot. I don't need 10 symbols. I only need 2 symbols, which I can represent on each finger. Okay? We used to count in base 12, but we've only recently standardized in base 10. That seems insane, and I don't know what you mean by recently. Like, I don't know what the Romans were up to, but their numerals were all crazy. I don't know what. I don't even think they had a base system to begin with. I'm not even sure what the hell happened. I have myself personally Ivy Sheeps. Just like, you have what? I gotta do math. Is this bowling? Why does your future score hurting is based on your previous score? Dude, dog, you got what? This is bowling, right? Is this how bowling got invented? Someone was watching Roman numerals and said, "Dude, I got an idea." Anyways, okay. LXIX, nice. Bowling. Okay. Unfortunately, everybody was right. I'm gonna have to put a pause in this little reaction right here. The stand-up starts. Okay. The stand-up is starting. So I'm gonna go use the bathroom, make sure I'm tight, ready for this nice stand-up, and then we're gonna have to finish this after the stand-up. I know I didn't realize how long this was gonna go. We're at 1 hour and 13 minutes already. So I'm gonna have to take a quick break. We're gonna do the stand-up. We got Casey Moratori, Trash Dev, Tej, everybody. We're going to bring them all together. Turns out I was really bad at math, and I thought I had 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I only had 1 hour and 30 minutes, so I was an idiot. Okay? So, there's that. That whole thing. There's that whole thing. You know what I mean? What's today's topic? You're going to have to wait a second to see what today's topic is all about. You don't get to know until you get to know. You know? What the hell am I saying? What the hell am I even saying? Hold on one second. Let me move this over. Let me delete this. Let me go to this PCZ. This PC's of nuts. All right, I'm going to be right back. Guy says math is correct and then is incorrect about math. What? You've never been incorrect about something? Yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm just proving the point I'm not perfect, dog. Carly Cert. What, you going to be correct about all of math? Oh, I didn't realize you're correct about all of math. Wow. I didn't realize we have the actual math magician here. Leave Brittany alone. Sorry. If you are such a feminist name, all women. I don't even know what that even means, Jeremy. Name all women. Oh, if you're such a feminist, name all women. All of them. I want all 3.5 billion right now. Or you hate them. You hate them. You hate them all. Facts. I thought about that in my head. Realized I'm right. Whitney Houston. That's one. All right, hold on. Let's let me be right back. I will be right back, and then we're gonna get started. Okay? I gotta get started. Hey. Hey, winner. Sorry, I made a. I wanted a quick quesadilla. Here I am, eating a quesadilla. My wife did not make us a quesadilla, so it's not nearly as good. Cheese, black bean. Tortilla.
1,000, I think, when I had checked last time after we ran the ad the first time.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, hey, nice of you to join us.
I was making a tortilla.
Excellent.
Tortilla?
Yeah, tortilla.
Corn or flour?
Flour, dude. I'm not a savage.
Yeah.
Dude.
Sourdough.
Disgusting.
Dude, it's.
Oh, I've had a sourdough one before.
Oh my
Kayleen's been
gosh.
making sourdough everything.
Dude, we've been
actually,
eating sourdough pizzas, and they are so good.
I have
I'll
a
be
problem.
suggesting that. Yeah, what's new?
I started streaming from one instance of OBS, and I'm trying out global audio,
Okay.
which means I have none of the scenes that I've created for Riverside, so I have to re-pull them back all out by a window capture.
Nice. Just share the whole Riverside screen. It's fine.
The only problem is that it makes it just you can't. You know
I'll
why,
just
right?
Stare at Prime.
Because then when I'm talking, I'm like seconds behind my sound and all that. But that's a good
okay.
idea. I'll just overlay only myself. That's a good idea. I like your ideas, TJ.
Give me the meat.
It's like he knows what he's doing.
Josh, keep it in. I was gonna say cut this out, but Josh, keep it in.
All right, hold on. Let me go like this. Let me do a little bit of the old window capture.
Hey, Casey, any blockers on your end?
I don't think so.
'Kay.
I'm not sure.
There is no
What did I get done
confidence in there.
yesterday, and what am I gonna have done for tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow's Saturday. Do we do this? Does the stand-up say what you're gonna do on Monday? What you're gonna have done by Monday? Probably not.
Yes, you got to say what you're gonna. Tomorrow is Monday in corporate world. We don't believe you have a life or existence outside of these walls, Casey.
It just disappears.
Yeah, you
True.
just disappear. It's like your teachers. It's like you do not
Yeah.
want to see your teacher
Right.
at the grocery store, dude. That's
Right.
weird.
Right.
Honestly, that is actually super weird. When I was younger and I saw like my teachers not in a school setting, I was like, "You're an actual person that exists outside of this facility." It just blew my mind.
Oh my God, dude! It's infinity. It's
Yeah,
the infinity
hold on,
corner.
we're
I
get-
actually think we should leave this. This looks hype.
We're gonna figure this out.
This looks like the war room, like the situation room. It's like CNN covering some kind of a an
Counter-Strike
emerging
match.
situation.
classic
I like
CNN
this.
covering
Oh,
Counter-Strike matches.
man. It was so cool before.
I know, but now you guys are gonna get like this totally broken, weird view.
Are you just gonna move your chair to where you
Oh, that
fit?
that cannot be the right strategy.
Yeah, dude.
Because now
this,
Hey,
no,
that's
you
not
guys
bad.
just don't
version
gonna see
of
it.
you is going to be in the corner, dude.
Yeah, it does.
What is going on? Is there some rule that says that like
Prime, change
on.
your
large
virtual
podcasters
cam.
can't have functional audio-visual?
Prime,
Yeah, I know. I'm
change
doing it
your
right
virtual
now. I'm
camera
doing
to
it.
scene.
I am
and then
already
change-
doing that. I am
Okay,
already
nice. All
doing
right, good,
that.
good,
There
good,
you
good.
go. How's
Good,
that?
good, good. Right now we've got OBS blue circle. So
That's good.
Josh
Failed.
Josh
Hold
will
on,
have
hold on.
that. Josh has that.
Starting the output failed. Please check the log details. If you're using NVENC or AMD encoders, make sure they're up to date. I can't start a virtual cam.
Oh yeah, now we're talking, boys.
Lord.
Just start over, man. Shut it down.
How many
reboot.
episodes in? We still haven't got. We
not
still have not got
complicated.
this down.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. I actually have
The
to
best
start
part
my.
is
I have to
the
start
best
my
part
other
is
OBS.
the recording of Prime is literally just it just is going to show the blue OBS screen. That's
yeah.
all we have in Riverside.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on, chat. Give me a second. Let me try to figure this out. All right, so
I can try to do the opening. It's like I can't remember. It's like
no,
it's
don't
like,
do the opening.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay,
It's like that, right?
What did he say? And they said sorry. Something. I can't
Yeah.
understand him after that. What do you say?
Yeah.
Sorry. Something.
It's something
know,
like
that's
that.
all we
I don't remember
needed, though.
exactly. Yeah.
That's all we needed.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's just a regular stand-up.
Dude, this
Hey guys,
sucks.
welcome to the stand-up
All right,
here.
I
It's
have
me,
to-
ThePrimeagen.
I might have
Yeah.
to restart my computer.
TJ, nice bounce. Yes, that is that bounce.
Okay, guys, we're in a bit of a conundrum.
Are we gonna raid Teach and then raid him back?
I have to restart my computer, but there's an update pending. So I do not know exactly how long this is going to be.
Prime, here's a quick question. Quick question before you do that. I can click stop recording.